Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather on the campfire and we share our stories of connection to that which is bigger than us, to the great mystery beyond the veil, to the very vulnerable experiences that we have inside the flesh. And what does it all mean? And what are we here for? And how do we navigate this thing called life? And these are the discussions that happen on Soul Nectar Show. I'm your host, Kerri Hummingbird, and I love having these conversations because they really illuminate for me so many new aspects of the life experience. And when I hear other people's stories, it just opens me up and inspires me. I hope it inspires you as well. That's why I keep bringing people on the show. And if you are navigating a vulnerable part of your life's journey and you'd like some community and some support, just reach out and find me at my website, kerrihummingbird.com. That's Kerri, hummingbird.com, and book a little chat and we'll have a talk and see where you're at and what you need and see if I'm the person to walk a little while with you on your journey. So today's guest, I'm so excited. Diana Min is here with us. Welcome, Diana.
Hi, Kerri. Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome. So Diana is from New York City natively, and she began her spiritual journey growing up at a Thai Buddhist temple surrounded by monks in meditation from the ages of 5 to 15. That is an awesome way to begin. So we're going to hear about that. But she also had some really unimaginable abuse happening in her private life due to some mental illnesses. And I know that I definitely resonate with that on my journey. There's been a lot of that abuse and things that just in my early childhood, you wouldn't believe how long that stuff has an impact in your life, even when it's long gone and over. So Diana, like many people, addiction to alcohol and drug use developed quickly as she tried to escape the painful reality of her upbringing and all that PTSD and the diagnoses, those diagnoses. Thank you, psychology industry, for giving us a reason to not like ourselves very much. We're so appreciative of that. So, these issues can really haunt you throughout your whole life. So at 26, Diana suffered a mental breakdown. We're going to hear about that a little bit today. But then she found a shamanic healer, and check it out, because that's totally my path. I love ayahuasca. I love ceremony. I love the Amazon. And these are all things that Diana has been definitely part of her life experience and healing. And now we're talking about this for the masses, bringing this out into the masses. You can follow her on the Urban Indigo, and I'm on her new summit, her new series that is going to be out already by the time this comes out. But check her out, because I know this is not the only gig she's going to be doing. Does this message needs to get out there? So Diana, tell us a little bit about you. What do you do today? And then tell us more about that beginning journey. Tell us how you found their way.
Yeah. So, right now, I am a spiritual mentor and intuitive coach. I help spiritual entrepreneurs get in alignment with their most authentic expression to really allow their souls to be manifested in the physical world and hopefully create a business and something thriving out of their gifts, of their natural innate gifts that they have, and really activating people into their power and aligning them with their true path and healing. Obviously healing is a huge pillar within my business, because we can't do anything unless we heal, right? We can't go anywhere without our inner child being on board. So really a lot of that inner work that needs to happen before we step out into the external world to try and step into our purpose, our power. So that is what I'm currently doing, and I love it. I am so just lit up by it, because it's my journey, right? It's my journey that I've walked and I've had to navigate, and then now I get to share all the tools and tips and hacks that I've learned to try and help other people walk that similar path, not the same path, but the similar path. But yeah, how I got started, I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit in my bio. It's just it was a tough journey. Sometimes when you've done so much healing, like even hearing that, I'm like, that sucks for that girl. Like I can't even like energetically connect with the girl that was going through all that stuff. But in certain moments I can, when I'm still unraveling and ever unfolding into certain into new levels. I can feel like remnants of like that pain and that suffering that I experienced. You know, my mother, she was bipolar, so it was extremely challenging for me, you know, being physically abused, being mentally abused, emotionally abused, not only by her, but through the neglect of my father, who was also suffering a lot of, you know, trauma from his childhood. And then my sister, who was also suffering trauma from them, and then, you know, taking it out on me. So I was just receiving it from all sides as, you know, the black sheep, the whipping girl of the family. And so it was very early on, you know, through that journey, that I just wanted to die. I remember I had suicidal thoughts when I was like 8 years old, 12 years old, trying to kill myself, and just really wanting to escape how miserable my life was at that time, and not having any solace, you know. And I've talked about this with somebody else who's doing, you know, trauma work within schools, and how much I like desperately try to reach out to teachers, counselors, you know, try to find some help, and it was just wasn't there, because it just wasn't, you know. And so as I grew up, I just turned to drugs and alcohol, and that was my escape. And I mean, I turned into an alcoholic pretty quickly, probably from my first drink, where I was just like, wow, I can escape my pain this way, this is great. And that, you know, quickly developed into alcoholism, which led to, you know, other unfortunate circumstances of being raped and being drugged, and, you know, just getting arrested, getting DWIs, and like having a lot of violent episodes. I was a very violent person. That's would come out when I would drink, because that is the reality that I experienced. And so, you know, as we go through these things, we recycle the behaviors that we know. And so for me, all I knew was violence. So I would just be this terrible, violent, vicious person. Ugh. And you know, it continued. I mean, it's not that I wasn't, and I was still achieving things, you know what I mean? I was still graduating high school and college, and then getting awesome jobs and working in New York City, doing all the things that I thought I was supposed to do, externally achieving, right? But internally dying, and being miserable, and trying to find things to fill my soul, you know, buying designer bags and shoes and men and vacations, and trying to look good, like everything was perfect. And, you know, and being so like physically focused on my appearance, when internally I was, you know, I went into a really bad drug kind of hole for like a couple years. Let's say like 5 years. I mean, people like cocaine and MDMA, and I mean, really anything that was available. I was just trying to escape existence. I really was, when I think back on those years, was really asking to die, because I just didn't value my life. I didn't value myself, and I just couldn't. The experience of life was just so painful that I was like, just take me from this, you know, anything. You know, when I turned 26, I actually went to Costa Rica for my birthday, and it was something about the energy of that, of the frequency of that place, that was extremely healing and really beautiful, and something that just connected with me, right? And so when I came back to New York, and this is also, every time I flew back to New York from like some type of tropical vacation, whether I went to Thailand or South America, I would come back to New York City and cry hysterically in the airport. Like, I just did not want to go back. My soul was just like in so much pain to go back, and I would never understood why. I was just sobbing on the airplane. I'm like, I don't know, I'm just miserable here.
I'm just miserable to go home to New York City, where everyone's angry and hostile, and, you know, slamming each other on the sidewalk and stuff like that. I've been there.
Right, living in a box, right? And I remember I was in my apartment, and I was just having a breakdown. Like, I was having that mental breakdown, and I just was crying, and I just felt like, it's not like I wanted to kill myself, but I just wanted to get out of my body. I felt like my skin was crawling, and I just couldn't exist in it anymore. And I was also working in nightlife. So I was working as a bottle waitress in New York City, which is just like the depths of hell. Like, I just the most like toxic people ever.
Yeah, because they all want to feel special, and the way to feel special is to have status and be treated really well, and so they expect you to grovel and probably all that stuff. Like,
Right, right. And I had gotten also raped in that industry as well. I had got drugged and raped by one of my managers that I actually ended up working for 3 years, but I didn't remember because I was, you know, unconscious. So a lot of things just being stepped on, you know, and at the time that's what I energetically agreed that I deserved, and that's what I did, you know. And so one of the girls I worked at in a nightclub had given me a number of this healer like a year ago, and it was just in my phone for a whole year. And in the middle of this mental like just breakdown, I just called this woman, this strange woman, never talked to her ever before. She usually didn't even pick up the phone. She ends up picking up the phone. I'm like crying hysterically on the phone with this stranger. And she's like, listen, I'm in Brooklyn. When you're ready, you can come see me. And I went to go see her about a month later. And it was the first time anybody had really ever asked me, like, what happened to you? You know, I don't think anybody had ever took the time or even had the introspection to look beyond like my addictions and my anger, my violence, and see like what happened to you. And for me to just start to really dig up some of the things, the horrible things that happened to me. You know, my mother used to leave me outside. She used to waterboard me with the shower like thing, and like, yeah, it was just things like getting choked, getting beaten, you know, having staplers thrown at my face, things like that. Just, and on top of the verbal and emotional abuse, you know, of just being called stupid and dumb and retarded. You can't do anything. That, you know, days I would spend crying, and they would like threaten to like send me away, you know, because there's something wrong with you, like, you know, and all that stuff. And finally having this woman being like, you are suffering so much. And I couldn't even really afford her. And she's like, but I need to help you. And I worked with her for 6 months doing things I had no idea what was going on. As an intro into this, you know, mystical world, you know, she lays me down on this table, there's drumming happening, there's rattles going, and I'm just laying there, just like receiving all this. And I started to feel some shifts happening, right? Like there was a moment, I think maybe after like our second or third session, that I could almost like taste this fear like in my mouth, like floating out of my mouth. And it was like this, like, and everybody always asks me, what does fear taste like? It tastes like metal. Like it was tasting like a metal, like almost like when staplers were getting thrown at my face, kind of like that. And looking around the world, and I was just like, it felt like a veil had dropped. Like I love that you talked about the veil in the beginning. Like it felt, because I was like, wait, like I'm not fighting for my life right now. Like it was almost this moment of like, I can look around at life and not come from a place of fear and defense and violence, because I wasn't fighting for my life. And it just, things began to shift. And I went into my first ayahuasca ceremony September 2015. And I mean, that changed everything for me. I completely, like, she completely took all of my addictions away from me. I could not drink a drop of alcohol, drugs completely gone. I was in a relationship at the time that was very abusive. All my relationships at that time were abusive, like every single one. And we were living together, so I was trapped, you know, I had nowhere to go. And I ended up finding myself in a second ayahuasca ceremony randomly, right? Just somebody at a nightclub was like, oh, do you want to drink? And I'm like, oh, I can't. They're like, why? I'm like, ever since I did this thing called ayahuasca, I can't drink. That woman was organizing ayahuasca ceremonies. It just like, boom, happened. Going to my second ayahuasca ceremony a month after my first, and getting this download of this relationship needs to end, which he was a soulmate of mine for sure, in the way that he was meant to destroy me. And that she told me that you're going to move to California. And I could feel the sun shining on me, the warmth. I could hear this ocean. I grazed my hand across the ground, and it was sand. And I just thought, oh, this is so nice, you know. And I never thought about it again after that. A week after that, I got fired from my job.
Of course.
I know, right? I was just like, what's happening? A week after that, me and my ex get into the biggest physical fight that we almost like killed each other. That it ended us, right? So I had to move out. So I'm like looking for apartments. I mean, I have no money now. I'm like, you know, I'm just like distraught. I remember I was like curled up in fetal position in my office, and I was underneath the table, and I was just like desolate. You know, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. And then his hand kind of took this life of its own and started like grazing my head like this. And I heard like a literal voice say, I love you, and I will never leave you, and you're going to be okay. And in that moment, I got up and I was like, man, I visited San Diego like 2 years ago, and I really liked it. Remember that girl that you stayed at with an Airbnb? She was really nice. You still have her number? Text her. And I texted her in that moment. I said, hey, let me know if you know anybody looking for a roommate, because I'm looking to move. She's like, I'm looking for a roommate. Within, I don't know, 4 weeks of that conversation, she had found us an apartment. I didn't have enough money to move, but I had put all of my ex's furniture on a credit card. He paid me out on that credit card. It was $3,500. It cost me exactly $3,500 to the dollar to move my boxes, move my car, plane ticket. Oh, no plane ticket. I actually had enough points, free flight, paid the rent, everything. Like within 2 months, I was gone. It was the easiest move of my life. I literally, she did Airbnb. She had all this furniture for me. I literally get here and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, what just happened? I had no idea. I felt like she floated me out of that environment and placed me here and was like, all right, let's get started. And I just figured it out. I ended up that same girl that I ran into in the nightclub that was organizing ayahuasca ceremonies in New York. Like 3 weeks later, after I had like walked into the nightclub here, got a job, she's like, hey, didn't you just move to San Diego? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, I just dropped the shaman off at the airport. He's on his way to San Diego for a ceremony. I'm like, fucking course, of course. Found myself in that ceremony, healed a lot, went to Peru, found the love of my life. I mean, it just continues on like that, right? The journey just continues to pull you forward. And I've just been trusting and surrendering and just allowing ever since, and really working through all of my blockages against that, right? And reprogramming all of my beliefs about myself. And it's been, you know, what, 5 years now, 5 years going on 6 of me being completely awake for this transition and really understanding like, God, like I am, you know, one of the major revelations I've had within medicine is just like, you have control over nothing.
Well, that's true.
Right. And this illusion that we have this control, but you know, if life is meant to pull you in a direction, there's nothing that will stop it from doing that, you know? And yeah, I mean, it's been a roller coaster ride. It's been the sweetest ride ever. And I'm just so grateful to be here.
Oh man, Diana, your energy is so beautiful. Your light is beautiful. You know, the fact that you've dedicated yourself to this calling, and I just not always do you get appreciated for that. And so I want to just take a moment and appreciate you for dedicating yourself to the dark path. Like this is you know, it is a path of light, but in order to get to the light, we got to go through the shadows. And working with ayahuasca is one of those medicines that brings you all the way into your shadow to find your light. Like this is not a lightweight thing. This
Never.
is challenging. You got to go all the way in there. You got to find out uncomfortable things about yourself and be willing to see that and feel that and make new choices, you know, and the choices are easier after the healing, right? So you can really change your life a lot, like you're talking about.
Yeah,
Things
yeah.
get into flow.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely took a couple, you know, what I actually encouraged me and inspired me to actually become a coach was I actually wanted to be an integration coach, because what I was really seeing from my own experience of like my first kind of 2 years in the medicine was that I wasn't integrating. Like I wasn't,
Yeah.
yeah, like I was just going to the medicine and I was being codependent on ayahuasca to like heal all my issues and solve all my problems. And then I would come back into my life and still go punch somebody in the face and still go curse somebody out and still be like a bitch to some random person. You know what I mean? So I wasn't integrating. And it was still like, you know, kind of having this one foot in your former version of yourself and one foot in this new version that's still developing. So you're kind of in that in-between stage. So you're taking like, you know, 5 steps forward, 3 steps back constantly. And I wasn't seeing any like progress in my life. I was still working at a nightclub, even though I was sober. You know, I was still like not feeling good enough. I was still having issues with my own wealth and my own worthiness. And I was still accepting less than I deserved. And I still didn't have confidence in my voice. Like I was still coming into form. And it wasn't until I started to hire mentors, teachers, coaches to really help me do the integration work in the physical world, in the conscious world, while I'm still doing the healing work in the cosmic world, in the mystical world, did I really start to see
Oh, I
leaps
love that. Just I love
into,
the way you just said that, the cosmic, the mystical
yeah. And so
versus
that
the
was kind of
practical physical. Yeah.
right. Because there's, I mean, both, you know, you're having one foot in on one world and one in the other. So it's
Yeah.
to like try to like meld that in together. So, for me, I was like, as I was organized, so started organizing ayahuasca ceremonies in Southern California for the last 4 years. And so what I was, the responsibility that I felt to bring this medicine to the people, but also to see them actually have change in their life and actually integrate and actually create, sustainable changes. Like I was like, no, like I need to help them. And people were coming to me for, that stuff anyway. So I was like, let me create something out of it. And that's kind of where I was inspired to become like a spiritual teacher and an intuitive coach in this realm. And it's kind of then taken a life of its own. So
It's a lot. It's a big path because especially when you're facilitating circles for the lady, it's like that ayahuasca is one of those, oh, she's very fierce. She's
yeah,
no BS. So when when you're standing in her medicine as a conduit of that, in my experience of it is that it's a ferocious truth. It's like really like being willing to just be surrendered to whatever it is she's bringing forth for you to see, witness, experience, and then be willing to just open your heart to it and not, not close, but open to it. Like, it's like, here's the sword. Letting it, like just letting it in, because it's a sort of love. I mean, it's really love on the other side of that painful truth, or that, the thing you're realizing. It's a beautiful thing, and it's hard to face some of this stuff. So we have a whole collective that's having trouble facing things.
right, right. And I think you and I talked about this on our other call, but like having done this work for the past 5 years has really prepared me for this year.
Yeah, that's for true. I think anybody who's like invited ayahuasca or any of the plant medicines into their life this year has been okay. Actually, it's been like, oh, all right, there's a lot of stuff happening, but it's okay. But it's really more like people that haven't done any of this work will go like, oh, like having one of those moments.
Yeah,
Like, what's going
yeah.
on? Like everything's falling apart, and we're like, that's great. What are you talking about? Everything's fine.
Yeah.
We're
Oh, just
changing.
normal shadow stuff. Yeah, we're just purging. We're just purging out a lot of
We're
stuff.
just
It's
purging. It's okay.
okay.
Yeah, it's really recognizing how to let go too. I think, at least on my personal journey, I like what you're talking about with like it's almost like you can't even resonate. I actually saw this picture of myself um right after I birthed my first child. I was looking back over some pictures and just, thinking about my oldest son and just reminiscing, and I looked at these pictures, and I'm like, I don't even know who I am. Like that person that was me, I'm looking at, I'm like, who is that? I I don't know who that is. And so I took this time to just try to connect with that, and it really felt like a two-dimensional doll. Like I know it was a picture, but it just felt so 2D. And then here I am now, and I'm like, maybe that's because I'm 5D, but it just feels like so shallow, and I know I was going through so much at that time in my life. So it was not a shallow experience because I know cognitively what I was going through. But yeah, it's hard to tap into who you were when you transform so radically.
Yeah, yeah. And there are also moments where I kind of dip back into that space because I'm still healing some parts of it. And
Yeah.
after it's like you said, sometimes I look at the pictures and it's very flat, right? That person, I could feel almost like just like the static that like that she was moving through. It was like mud, it's just it was so much resistance, right? And so right now, like as I'm healing through some intimacy things, right? Like I have like a new love in my life, and I feel really supported, and I feel like the most support I've ever felt in my entire life. And it's so beautiful. But then it gets into this particular place
Whew.
where there's this pain of never having been supported ever, of having lived life alone for so long, right? And so this love is like shooting into this place to heal it, and then boom comes out all of these dark shadows of that were still there. And I'm like, I find myself completely inappreciative of this amazing person in my life, but also crying hysterically from the sadness and all the loneliness and all the pain that she was still feeling, that has still been like just engraved in there, and that's coming out, that's purging, right? And
I
so
really understand that so well. That same thing happened to me when I found my partner, Akeem. And he just opened my heart. He has just consistently opened my heart with so much love and so much grace. And he's like, same thing. He's made it so safe. And
yeah.
almost in the safety is when like he's holding me in this beautiful, safe space the last 4 years. And that's when all the shit erupted in my family of origin. Like my dad passed away, and then everything else just went, like,
Yeah.
and it was just like, and now it's like I've faced the deepest core wound of just never really feeling loved, wanted, desired, cherished,
Mhm.
supported, uplifted, celebrated,
Oh,
just never having felt that. And the one person who gave me the feel, like some of those feelings passed away. So it's like so interesting how the love actually lets us open more
mhm.
to release the pain, to witness the pain, to feel the pain. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love how you
Mm.
describe that, because yeah, it's really, it that's what love is meant to do. It's meant to heal us. And when we close ourselves off to, and I think that's what I had been doing these past couple of years, when I had went to Peru. I did find what I thought was the love of my life, because we met at an ayahuasca ceremony. What do you
Yeah.
mean?
I mean,
Of course we were meant to be
supposed to
together
be
forever.
beautiful, right?
He was
Uh,
actually, apparently we were together in a past life, which is why it felt so intense. But I thought I was going to marry him, and then for us to not end up together, 2.5 years later, it was like it destroyed me. And and as much as surrendered as I am, and as much as I trust in the divine, and I'm completely like have unwavering faith in the path that, like, even at the time I was like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like, hands to the sky in the dirt on Mount Shasta, like crying my eyes out, like, come on, like, what's happening here? And realizing like I had really closed myself off energetically, right, to love and
mm.
everything. I shriveled up, and I focused 100% on this external achievement, which is not the worst thing, because I created a business, so I mean that was cool. You know what I mean? But what I realized too, in this new love that's kind of emerging right now in my life, is that when we really focus on receiving, right, from our feminine essence, like, the feminine is all about receiving, right? So once I really opened up to receive not only my own self-worth, right, not only my purpose, my path, not only then my abundance, right, then my voice, then my whatever, I started just to once I surrendered this idea of this identity of who I thought I was, and allowed myself to receive my truth in all of these different forms, how they manifested in the physical, right, my business, and the thriving, and and then allow myself to receive love, and just really
Mm.
understanding like that surrender of that feeling of trust and feeling safe is really with the divine, as well as within a relationship, right? And they're the same.
It's the really so I'll tell you this. So when I met Akeem, I had a 20-year relationship. I had a 20-year marriage.
Yeah.
That was quite a classroom for me to learn about speaking my truth and not suppressing my feelings and leaning into uncomfortable conversations, because I just avoided all of them. I just avoid. I took the wine. I had the not feeling pills. I went, at art shows. I escaped in any way I could. There was a lot of avoidance. So I learned about how that doesn't serve you. Okay. So,
Yeah.
and it just brings things to a very dark, nasty place. And then you can't recover at some point from how low it goes. So I learned that. And then So with Akeem, when I met him, I said, okay, yes, he asked me to marry him, and I said, yes. I said, but if we do it, we're going right into ceremony, like
Yeah.
immediately with the
Yeah.
plants,
Yeah.
because whatever needs healing, this relationship is just fundamentally foundation of spirit
Yes.
first. And
Yes.
we need to make that clear. And that first night in ceremony, it was like the message I got was, this is a divine union. And that's really, I think, in my heart, I feel it's because we made the choice that this divine first and everything else second, because what else is there? It's the divine. It's no false idols. Like, there is the divine first, and then everything else falls out from that place.
Ah, yes, yes. I feel so yummy.
And it is, and I don't expect this, like, that's the other change, is I don't expect it now to not have problems.
Right.
It's the problem is not the problem. The problem is the thing that needs healing. The problem is the way. It's the doorway for us to find more about ourselves.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in our first relationships, we can get wrong ideas about things, until you have enough ayahuasca, and then you start realizing what you really love. So
I mean, definitely our triggers are our teachers, right? We're here to, and
I love that. Yeah.
yeah, somebody said the other day, it was like a wise person will thank you for triggering them, and really understanding that, yeah, it's okay. It's not, that's why we're here. That's why we're here. We're here to help each other. We're here to uplift each other and to assist as we grow and evolve and shed layers of who we're not to continue to come back to who we are. So it's yeah, it's been a beautiful unraveling of so much.
Yeah, I like that you said our triggers are our teachers, because that's definitely true. And I think a lot of people, they have these false ideas that we're supposed to avoid triggering each other. We're supposed to be nice. Being nice doesn't work very well, Diana, does it?
I prefer to be honest.
Honest is good. You can say things in a loving, heart-centered way, right?
Right.
But like, I love that you actually you spoke very clearly and concisely about your experience with your mother and about the challenges that you faced.
Mm,
And a lot of people shy away from being that honest about things.
mm,
So what do
very.
you think helped you to be honest about that? What's part of your journey that's really helped you to be honest about what you experienced?
I have no shame around it. I have no shame around it. I know it was none of that was my fault. I know none of it was her fault either. And that's what's really
Mm.
hard for my family to understand, why I can continue to talk about them in this way where they feel like I'm bashing them or I'm dragging them through the mud. And I'm like, no, like, I love you. And I appreciate what you've done for me. And I appreciate what I went through so that I can be the person that I am now. And, to this day, my mother and my sister do not speak to me because they feel, well, my mother probably mostly ashamed of herself, my sister embarrassed and just wanting to, deny and call me a liar and all these things, which is fine. You know what I mean? I've had to take time to be okay with them being on their journey with it, and and accept that they're not ready to face the things that I faced, because obviously they didn't do 70 ayahuasca ceremonies in 5 years, so they don't get why I'm doing this, and that's okay, right? But for me, why I can be honest, because I face it. I spent many nights crying my eyes out about it, feeling the pain, feeling the trauma, feeling her pain, right? Feeling my mother's pain, feeling her trauma, walking literally in her shoes as I experienced the things she experienced as a child, to have hurt her in this way, that have damaged her in this way, for her to be such a like imbalanced person, right? And incapable of just love, like it's sad, you know what I mean? So for me, like, how I can be okay with it, because I'm just very equanimous with it, like it is what it is, like there's nothing wrong with it. For me,
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with what happened to me, and I don't see anything wrong with what she did, and there's no blame or shame around it. It just is.
It just is. And, until people are ready to wake up themselves, they're never going to get that.
Yeah.
But if you've been through a journey like you and I have been through, you've been through this deep work, and I would say deep work, because ayahuasca and things like that, that is a very deep journey. it is experiencing not just your own journey, but you can actually, because our bodies are made of our ancestors, we have ancestral DNA, our bodies are made of our ancestors. You can actually experience, like you were saying, your mother's journey by being under this plant that's guiding you to into your ancestral journey. Like you can actually experience what it's like to be her. You can
Yeah.
feel it. And the truth is we're always feeling it anyway because we're empathic. It's just that there's filters on the empathy. And
Mhm.
so we can feel other people's feelings, we can feel their life experience, we can even see their outlook on life the
Yeah.
more psychic you get. And the plant opens you up to being able to do that. If you know, if you haven't really unlocked those psychic gifts, the plant unlocks it for you so you can experience that. And I've had moments like that too. And you get these questions like ayahuasca will ask you, like for me, there was a relationship from my mom and my first stepfather that was very violent. And ayahuasca is like, that's the karma they shared between them.
Mhm.
So although I was impacted by it, by hearing the violence and hearing what was going on and feeling it and sensing it and being scared, that that was their karma. So I could be, like you said, I could judge it and involve myself in the karma,
Right.
or I could realize that that was something between the two of them
Yeah.
and create a boundary there. So that's what I love about the medicine is that it helps you to be so clear about these soul agreements and relationships
Mhm.
and why they unfold, which allows you to be vocal and talk about it.
Mhm.
But people who haven't had that perspective, they take everything personally. So they hear you talking about it and they think it's about them. And it's like, no, it's really not. It's hard to explain it to you because you're not taking the medicine. So you're not in it. You don't really understand. But this is
Right.
a collective experience experienced individually.
Yes. Yes.
You know?
Oh, yes, absolutely, 100%. And the true freedom comes when we detach ourselves from the judgment of it,
Which
right? Like,
is not easy, Diana. It's not. Even I still have, and I've done a bunch of, I haven't done as many as you, but I've done a bunch of ceremonies. I don't know how many now. I have last count, but
yeah,
I know it's not as many as you. Still, I still have trouble with that. Like, I still feel like my little girl, my little child inside will still have feelings. My teenage girl still has feelings about these things, and
yeah.
they'll come up, when things get triggered.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying I'm out here doing it perfectly either. You know what I mean? Of course we have our moments, but I strive to continue to return to that space when I feel myself kind of coming back into this, judgy kind of like egoic
Like,
type of.
how could they do that to me thing?
Yeah,
Ah,
like even now, like when like she's gonna hate me forever for talking about this. I don't even care. It's fine. So my sister won't let me see my niece, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart so much, and and then I just and I'll sit there and cry about it, and I'll sit there and
yeah.
take it personally for 10 minutes, and I'll sit there and feel all the searing pain of her words at me, right? They're like little laser energy beams of like pain and daggers, and I'm just like, and I receive it. I'm like, this hurts so much. And then I try to go through that little journey of like, okay, it's not about me. This is about you. I love you unconditionally. It doesn't matter. I let this go. I surrender to the reality of this moment. I surrender to the impermanence of this moment, and this will also change. And honestly, what's really helped me do that
Mm.
is my 10-day silent meditation that I think I mentioned to you that I've done.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, yeah. So in Joshua Tree, they have a Vipassana center, and I was in there for 11 days meditating silently, no books, no journals, no work. Like it's literally, they want you to shut down all these other parts of your brain to only
Mm.
activate this one part of your brain for meditation. And after doing, 70 ayahuasca ceremonies, I can honestly say that was the most intense thing I've ever done in my life was the 10-day silent meditation. Because what's happening with ayahuasca is that you're half in the mystical world, half in the, in the cosmic realms, and she's like guiding you and she's carrying you and you're so taken care of, and you just kind of go along for this ride, right? Whereas in the 10-day silent meditation, it's like an 11-day ayahuasca ceremony, but you are completely conscious. You're doing it by yourself. You're not only unraveling, purging, healing at the same time, but you're also integrating all simultaneously. So all these different things are happening. Like, I mean, and you don't even realize, because you're just like, you know, first couple days you're sitting there and I'm like, I'm in pain. My body's in pain. All this stuff starts to come up. Like what they say, it's like a purification of the mind, right? So as soon as you begin to settle your mind, all the gunk is going to rise to the surface. And so it unlocked memories I had forgotten about abuse that just like would all of a sudden like explode inside of me. And all of a sudden it's just like, I'm like hysterically crying. And like all throughout the Vipassana center, like all these other people, like they would just be crying in the corner, on the path, in the tree. Like you just see people breaking down because they're finally just sitting with their pain and things that they've avoided, and truths that they've denied, you know, and just getting in touch with their true selves. And it just, it creates, so what we learned in there was equanimity, right? So equanimity as in like everything just is, right? There isn't like these highs and lows that we have. It just, we're just constantly present, and everything is impermanent. So why even involve yourself emotionally with the impermanence of all things? We are impermanent. Everything we see is impermanent. We attach to them and we create suffering for ourselves. And so, you know, I came out of there completely changed. Like it was almost like people were like, "Are you okay?" Like, because I just had like no reaction to anything, and I was just like this, like so zen, you know. And they're like, "But don't you still want to feel happiness?" I'm like, "I feel so much happiness. Like I'm so like content and happy, but I'm not like bouncing off the wall and then having a low." And you know what I mean? Like it just wasn't like that. So it's like it was life changing, and it was so supportive of the work that I'm doing now, that I continue to do.
Well, that's a demonstration of joy,
Yeah.
because happiness is what we strive for when we're like forcing it to happen from our will, and we're like pulling our energy up and like mantras and like, you know, like gonna make it happen, and you kind of forcing all that to happen.
Yeah.
But joy comes from peace and
Yes.
acceptance.
Yes, absolutely.
And joy is a powerful feeling, and it's very permanent actually. You can cut yourself off from it, but it's always there. You know, it's always available. And gratitude. Oh, joy, love, gratitude, awe. Yeah, all on the other side of quieting down the chattering mind. It just won't shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told my
Yeah,
client yesterday, I'm like, happiness is hard work. Like you think
it is.
she's only been working with me for what, like 10 months, and she's like, it's like, you know, she's young, so she expects like a magic pill for it all to be like solved now. I'm like, girl, happiness is hard work, and healing is a full-time job. So unless you're willing to commit and show up consistently to continue to face this stuff down, I mean, it's always going to be a struggle, but that's what we signed up for when we came here. So
We signed up for this earth school. We signed up to embody as earth and to be connected in the oneness of this experience, and to be, you know, basically pitted with each other. I wouldn't like to say against each other, but more like with for each other. But
yeah,
it feels like against sometimes, but it's really, it's so that we each have that contrast so we can learn from each other,
yeah,
work
yeah.
through our stuff, you know, work through the learning. And at this point, we're just in some major upheaval because we're transitioning from two totally different energetics for thousands of years of age of Pisces. We're going into thousands of years of age of Aquarius. This is not even the same thing. It's a complete redirect. So yeah, it's kind of intense right now. 2020.
I know. What can we really expect in the age of Aquarius? I need to dive more deeper into. I mean, I'm an Aquarius, so it's
Oh,
like,
well, you're going to be feeling pretty good about
okay,
December
okay, cool.
21st, I think. Guessing. Well,
Yeah.
tell me. You just reach out to me and let me know. So, how do people get started with you, Diana? Like, what's the best way for people to get to know your work and know more about you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can find me on Instagram. It's at the Urban Indigo, which basically encapsulates my entire essence, right? Like I am a spirit child of the universe, but I'm also still from New York, so I'm a little spicy. And
Spice is fine. You can
yeah.
see my hair, so spice is good.
So, and I love it. All of my clients are all such good, like beautiful reflections of me, you know. So we all got a little bit of edge, but we're all still very connected. And doing the work, you know, and devoted to the divine. And so you can find me on there. Most of my content is on there. And yeah, I'm just out here being of service in whatever way I can. So depending on when this interview comes out, I'll probably be working on a new project by then as well. So just check in with me. I'll be there and just sharing my heart as always. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thanks for taking the time out to come share your voice over here on Soul Nectar Show. I appreciate that. I'm just going to encourage everybody to check out Diana, go connect with her on Instagram and share out her posts and share what she's doing. I know that the summit that we did together is probably going to be long out there by the time you guys see this, because this will go out like probably in April. But you stay tuned for her next one, because I'm sure it will kick ass.
Yes.
And in the meantime, anything else you want to tell people on their way out?
On their way out, I would say it's an inside out process, not an outside in process on your way out.
I love that. All right, you guys. So do us a favor. I always ask you people to help us to get the messages out there. It's kind of like we're building a light grid of all these interviews out there. And so help us connect more dots, please. Share it out, spread it out. Share it with people that you think would really benefit from hearing this conversation. And that's how you can help me and Diana to get the messages out there that we're working so hard to do. And here's how we're going to help you. We're going to give you love kisses. Here they come. Are you going to help me?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Here come your love kisses, everybody. This is how we help you. Okay. Love you. See you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now, everybody.
Bye.